everyone, to another edition of the Horned Frog Blitz podcast number 4. I'm Jeremy Clark, alongside my good friend and work partner, Jeremiah Glenn. Jeremiah, how's it going tonight, man?
It's going pretty good. A little bit late this week, but better late than never.
Better late than never. You're right, man. It's been a busy week for us both, and we enjoy getting together and doing this thing, and I know you guys enjoy listening to us two knuckleheads talk a little bit, but we got a lot to talk about tonight. We're going to dive into, recap the TCU SMU game, talk a little Texas Tech coming up this week. We got some possible commitment news coming down Friday with Isaiah Chambers announcing his decision on Friday, and we'll talk a little bit about TCU's chances in that, and lots of things on our plate tonight, but I know you've been fuming about this for the last 24 hours, and I know a lot of TCU fans have, and we don't like to bring up kind of old news, but we do want to talk about it a little bit because we do know one of the parties involved, and yesterday it comes down that Mike Tua'ua and Austin Pettis Wilson were arrested for robbery and assault. And do you think that was the right arrest, Jeremiah? I mean, you're shaking your head like you're still fuming about it.
It's we've talked about this, and I've seen some mention on the board about this, but 10 years ago, heck, 5 years ago, this isn't even news. I mean, any college campus in America, every weekend, there's a fight at a party and somebody takes somebody's beer. I mean, it's such a small thing. I get on my soapbox from time to time when I see maybe some media members or writers that might defend certain actions of certain players, and a lot of those times, those actions of those players are indefensible.
Right.
But we're talking about Mike Tua'ua here, and if you've ever met Mike Tua'ua, and we have, and a lot of you guys have, and Coach P's kids love him. Everybody that knows Mike Tua'ua loves this guy. He's not a bad guy. And I reading robbery charges on the front page of the websites and the newspapers, it got my blood boiling, because I feel like this guy is getting a really raw deal. I really do, because they make it sound like so much more than what it actually is. And I do hope everything comes out that's supposed to come out with this here in the coming days, and he gets his name cleared a little bit. But a lot of the damage is already done.
Right.
As soon as it hits the media runs with it, whether they have accurate information or not. And everybody else, if you try to say anything otherwise, and you're just a homer taking up for your team, but
you're defending crime.
You're defending a criminal that run around beating people up, and it's not the case. But I don't like the word robbery. When I think people automatically think armed robbery when they hear that.
Right.
You're talking about taking a case of beer and
Keystone Light, by the way. I mean, take some natural light, or natty light, or something.
But
I'm just kidding. Michelob Ultra, boys.
Yeah, it's just rough. It's hard to see. He's such a good guy, and to see him, I mean, this is just tearing him up. And
yeah.
And he's gone through a lot with all this, and yeah, I mean, there's no denying that there was a fight that was involved.
Right.
But to press charges over something like this, and I'm not going to even go down that road, man.
We're going to get on our rockers here and talk about when we're in college. This happens. It's not even really talked about. It's you're probably drinking beer with the guy the next week.
Yeah, you take your whipping and you go on.
Exactly. And in today's world of suing and pressing charges, social media, everything else, it's going to get out there, and I do feel for Mike, and obviously we don't want to, talk bad about the individual who got beat up, but we've both talked to Mike. I've seen Mike interact at practices. I mean, and Coach P talked about it yesterday. He's a very energetic guy, and Coach P wouldn't go up to the podium and put himself out there like he did for a lot of players, and he did for Mike, and that really spoke volumes to a lot of people that were at the media luncheon yesterday. And from my personal experience, I've seen the way Mike interacts with his team. I've seen the way he interacts with kids at the kids' camps or Meet the Frogs. Just personally speaking, he's met my son, and my son just loves him. My son loves Big V and Mike Tua'ua. And
he's one of those guys that you can't help but like him.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm sure all the people that have met him at Meet the Frogs just know he has a great personality. And if you asked Mike his thoughts right now, which unfortunately we haven't had a statement from him or anything, I know he's he's got to feel really down. He's got to feel really disappointed in himself. But, you know, the worst thing about it is he's a fifth-year senior, so if this is it, he doesn't get another chance to come back and finish out his career. But, you know, you're disappointed for all parties involved. You don't want to ever see anything like that happen. But, you know, just for Mike's sake, you know, just me personally speaking, I hate to see it from Mike because he is such a good guy. And, again, I'll say 10 years ago, this probably doesn't even make headlines.
Well, and, you know, not to belabor the point, but what are you taught when you're on a football team? You go through the battles together in practice. You know, you work really hard. You go through the blood, sweat, and tears of putting it all on the field, so you become like brothers with all your teammates. You're supposed to get your teammates back. When you see your teammate in a situation where he's outnumbered and he's being pushed around, is he not supposed to come to his defense?
And Mike's the type of guy that would be the first one to do it.
Exactly.
Too.
And so, yeah, he's 6'3", 255 pounds, solid muscle. But I guarantee you when he sees a friend of his in trouble, he doesn't think about, hey, I'm a lot bigger than these 4 or 5 guys that are pushing somebody else around. So, you know, are we saying now that the mistake is grabbing the guy's beer before he left? I mean, is that what compounded the problem here? I mean, seriously, it's so ridiculous on so many levels that it's gotten to this point. But I can't say that I blame anything that happened. If I see a friend of mine in trouble, I'm not going to walk away, or I'm not going to ask the guys to stop. I'm going to go and I'm going to defend them. And that's the way I was raised. I'm sure that's the way you were raised, and I know that's the way Mike was raised. And then that's the way the football guys are. They stick together, and you know, you're going to hear all kinds of stories out there, but we do hope that Mike's side of the story gets to come out.
Yeah, that's the main thing. You just let all the facts come out, and as Coach P said yesterday, he thinks they will. But anyway, we wanted to get that off our chest. We had been talking about it the last 24 hours, and I know you guys have too, and I'm sure a lot of you guys agree with our opinions as well, because those of you have been around Mike, again, just know what kind of character he has. But let's recap what happened last week. TCU survives the scare, 56-37 over SMU. My boy Jeremiah was up in the press box, about to beat through some glass up there. He had the white knuckles going. No, I'm just kidding. But, you know, it was a close game. It was a closer game. I gave SMU credit coming into the game because I liked the way they played Baylor hard. I love Matt Davis. I think that kid has a chance to be a very, very good quarterback. Probably is on pace to be that conference's player of the year if he continues at the pace he's having right now. But I was impressed with SMU, but more so I was impressed with TCU when they faced adversity. They came through it, and that's what good teams do. Good teams get through those battles, and they win the ball game, and that's what TCU did.
It took me a day or two after the game to get to where you are right now, or where we are now. Watching it that night, I couldn't believe what I was watching. And the score I still don't think is indicative of the talent level between the two teams. I think, like Coach P said after the game, SMU always comes over to Fort Worth and plays their tail off, period. They want that game. But, you know, I'm with you now. TCU had a chance to fold. They have everything was stacking against them with all their injuries, and their defense was so young, and all this could have happened, and they were primed for the upset. But they buckled down. They scored 2 late touchdowns and just totally shut SMU down when it counted the most, at the very end. And I think what that did was showed character, and it gave TCU a little bit of a look at themselves in the mirror. They said, okay, we are who we think we are.
Right.
We have to believe in even though we've got a bunch of young guys playing, these guys are all recruited by the same coaching staff. They all, you know, they're going to get it.
They're all scholarship players.
They're all scholarship players.
Except for Downing.
Yeah, so they're going to figure it out, you know, and it might take some lumps to figure it out, but I've talked myself off the ledge after this week. I walked out of there saying on Saturday, there's no way they beat Tech this weekend. That's all I can say, and there's no way they're going to beat Tech. And I've had time. I went back and sat down and watched the Tech and Arkansas. I DVR'd it, watched that whole game, and I'm back back in my right mind again. I don't think Tech is some massive juggernaut. It is a very tough place to play, and TCU does have holes on defense. But I feel much better about the game this weekend.
Well, speaking of the holes on defense, I know a lot of discussion was about the cornerbacks, and yet another injury. Ranthony Tejada goes down, season-ending injury. just a routine play. It looked like got kind of landed on by Cortland Sutton, but man, I don't know if they could take any more injuries on the defensive side of the ball. But we saw some guys come in after Anthony went out, and they weren't doing a very good job covering the vertical ball. Cortland Sutton was playing out of his mind, though. I got to give him credit because that kid right there showed me a lot as far as a big receiver that can go up and adjust to the ball and make some great catches. And that one-handed catch that he had that was called back was just insane.
Unreal.
I mean, his adjustment just to reach around. And actually, TCU had pretty good coverage on that play. He just made a remarkable catch, and thankfully he got called back with a penalty. But obviously, some of the negatives that I saw from the press box were the cornerbacks not getting their heads turned around fast enough. And I know it's easy to say they need to get their heads turned around, but someone, I can't remember who it was, and I was thinking the same thing, but it was a great point. It's hard to turn your head around when you're sprinting out of your mind to catch up to the receiver because you've already been beaten off a double move. So there wasn't really some of those times they were just beat.
Right. Well, Coach P said it best. If the guys that he has out there will listen to what he says, he said, how many times do I have to tell my guys that they don't run comebacks? SMU
Right.
doesn't run comebacks. So all night long, you have inexperienced corners biting on double moves when if they just stay home and play their assignment, they don't have to be chasing down these receivers.
Right.
And Coach P said, he goes, a lot of those plays, they were in position to make a play. They just have to make a play. So if they'll do what they're coached to do, and when I think more game reps will get that for you, and then he sounded more confident today about where his corners are. They took some lumps, but it's something that they're going to learn from. They're athletic enough.
Right.
They're fast enough. They've got the ball skills. It's just they have to trust what they've been taught. They haven't had a ton of reps, so they're going to get reps this week. But you just hope that they took what they learned from SMU. They were in position to make plays. They just have to make the plays.
Yeah, and he actually said on Wednesday that Torrance Mosley had a great week of practice, and he said he's always been there athletically, but he's battled through some injuries, didn't get to practice all of spring ball, was really held out of summer workouts, had surgery in June, really didn't come back to full steam till the end of August. So it's going to be interesting to see what he can do because he was a guy last year that was making an impact as a true freshman. But, I think overall playing a team like SMU with some pretty athletic receivers and obviously an athletic quarterback that can make plays with his feet will help them moving forward this week to playing Patrick Mahomes and Texas Tech. But we'll get into that a little bit later. But shifting over to the offensive side of the ball, man, I can't talk enough about Josh Doctson and his ability to go up and make some plays, and he really saved TCU's butt late in that game, making that great catch.
That catch was as clutch as you're going to see. That was a player that took it upon himself to make a play and just say, no, we're not allowing SMU to come back. We're ending it right here. And that's exactly what he did. He wanted the ball more than the defender, and that was his ball, and there was nobody who was going to take that ball from him. It was an incredible play, and that's what you want to see from your leader. That's what you have big physical receivers that have a lot of time in this offense now, and you're seeing the maturity and just the whole maturation process of what they've become as receivers. I mean, Kobe Listenby looks more physical, attacking the ball. You remember when he first showed up and he was a super athlete, but he wasn't much of a receiver.
Right.
And his ball skills have just steadily improved. But that's what you've seen with more reps in this offense. The guys that have been here for a while, they're really owning this offense right now, and I still think they can get better. That's the scary part.
It was like a good 1-2 punch with Josh and Cortland Sutton going back and forth because you didn't know which one was going to come down at the end to make the better catch.
Right.
And obviously it showed that Josh had the last laugh on that. But another guy that I thought had a good game was Tyson Lanina. He didn't have a lot of yards, but he had some pretty clutch catches, five catches. And that's what you want to see from Ty. He's a good slot receiver, and I don't think teams respect his speed a lot, and that's good news for Frog fans because once teams don't respect the speed, he's got the kind of speed where he can run right by you, and I thought it was good for him to go out there and make some catches, and he made a key catch in the fourth quarter. I think a 22-yard catch. That
was a
important.
laser from Boykin too.
Right, and it was a much needed play, and I think it was just a couple plays after when he found Josh for the touchdown. But speaking of Trey had his best game of the season, 454 through the air, 5 touchdowns. Did throw that interception late in the third quarter, but overall, pretty good performance from him.
It's
except for the front flip cartwheel.
yeah,
thing that
I
he
would
did.
love to see him stop going up airborne like that. One of these times he's going to come down. It's not going to be pretty. So
Well, you saw the kid from, where was it, Arkansas or South Carolina, that had the broken forearm?
Yep.
I mean, that very easily could have happened on that play, the way he landed.
well, and I know it made Frog fans a little uneasy when Trey got up from that one play holding his left wrist, and
Yeah.
you just want to see him, not take as many big hits as he takes. Maybe decide to go down a little bit quicker sometimes, but it's tough. He's a competitor, and with his athletic ability, he believes he can extend any play long enough to maybe have a receiver pop open or for him bust a long run. But he just has to be a little more prudent with his moves and deciding when to go down and when to take it and run. So overall, it was a good win. It is a win. You're 3-0. You got plenty to teach on in the film session, just like we talked about after the Minnesota game. So these last few games have been invaluable for all these young players. So hopefully they're getting better each week, and that's the goal.
What does it say about your program, though, when you can complain about a 19-point win?
I know. And then you can get jumped by a team that had a 14-point win at home against a Mountain West Conference team.
Yeah, ranking. Don't ever trust.
Don't get me started on that.
Don't ever trust the AP. The AP poll. I mean, I always go by the coaches poll because the coaches know a little bit more about football than what a bunch of knuckleheads like us know about. So,
Yes, sir.
But yeah, I mean, win is a win is a win. They're 3-0. Obviously, it's a lot better to go to Lubbock with a 3-0 record than 2-1, and because if they would have went up to Lubbock after losing to SMU, you don't know what kind of team you would have had traveling up there. It's just, but it is an old team, experienced team on offense, and they obviously got it done. 56 points. The thing I didn't like about them offensively, and I know you and I've talked about it quite a bit, is on the short yardage situations where, especially on that 4th and goal on one of the drives in the second quarter, where Travorce got stuffed. I mean, to me, I'd say line up your 210-pound quarterback and try to sneak it up the middle, because I'm the guy that, if you're lining up shotgun on the 1-yard line, you're losing 4 yards already.
Yeah.
You're putting yourself at a disadvantage. And so I'm not questioning Doug Meacham or Sonny Cumbie and what they're calling on offense, but I would prefer to see the guys get under center. Boykin get under center, or if they want to hand it off to a big running back, put Travorce Johnson under center. I don't know. Just put some guys under center. But the two plays where they had 4th and short yardage situations, they got stuffed both times.
Yeah, and if you are going to run your offense with a fullback, if they're going to bring Buck Jones in and have him lead block, you got to power it up in there. You can't tiptoe around, and that's a slow developing play where he faked the fly sweep to Cavante, and then he tries to take it in himself. By that time, SMU had plenty of time to snuff it out. So you'd like to see a little more straight ahead at the goal line like that, but like you said, it's hard to nitpick what Cumbie and Meacham do on offense. So, you're averaging 50 points a game. So who am I?
Yeah, you just mentioned the guy that we haven't talked to about the last 2 weeks, Cavante Turpin. Man, is that kid not incredible or what? I mean, the guy is already making plays as a true freshman. They throw that little slant pattern to him, runs 61 yards, and man, did he not look like a speed burner right away off that play?
It's incredible. I mean, you can see the hole was there, and he sees it, and both guys have an angle on him, and he still splits them and takes it to the house. I mean, if that's anybody else on the team, he's probably down right at about midfield. But instead, he breaks through both guys that have an angle on him and takes it all the way to the house.
Yeah, it's hard to believe that this kid is just a freshman, and when you miss a guy like Deontay Gray, I mean, has this kid not come in and shown that he could be the difference maker in this team?
Well, before the season, everybody saw the season that Deontay Gray had last year, and it was a huge loss for the offense. And we all knew about the potential of Cavante Turpin, but I don't think anybody expected him to step in and produce at the level that he's producing right now. He literally is a threat every time he touches the ball to take it all the way to the house. And I don't know if there's a more fun player to watch in college football right now. Every time he touches, I feel like I go up to the edge of my seat and I just watch. I love the way he's so shifty. He makes these guys look like they're peewee football players, the way they're falling all over themselves. It's fun to watch, especially for me and you. We're not the biggest guys, so I love seeing a guy that's 5'7", 152 pounds running around out there making people look silly.
Yeah, 152 pounds is very generous because we've seen him up close, and he doesn't weigh a whole bunch. But, yeah, you're right. I mean, if you like watching Turpin, though, you got to watch him quick because it doesn't take teams very long to realize they better start punting the ball away from him
Yep.
because he's going to make a play. I mean, we haven't seen him do it yet as far as scoring a touchdown, but I do think we're going to see them have a punt return for a touchdown this year, and Turpin's probably going to be the one doing that. So
Sure.
another guy that I thought had a good game was Aaron Green. Aaron had his best rushing game of the season. I think he finished with 160 yards,
164, something like
so,
that.
I mean, he's looking good. He's back to 100%. He was another guy that didn't go completely through fall camp because he had a nagging injury that he had to deal with. But as long as you have guys like Boykin, Josh, and Aaron Green all clicking, the big three, then I have faith in TCU's offense to go out there and score whenever they need to.
Yeah, and that's the thing is, knock on wood, is with all the the injuries on defense, they've still stayed relatively healthy on offense this year. Obviously there's a couple guys that are dinged up a little bit, but there are so many weapons on this team. We haven't even talked about Sean Nixon's emergence,
right?
And just you still got Juwan Story looks even better this year.
Yeah, and he actually practiced. I know some of the guys were wondering about him and Kobe Listenby, and both those guys practice, and even though they may not be 100% going up to Lubbock, they're both still expected to play.
Yep. I mean, you just got so many weapons on offense, and you're going to need them all this weekend. So,
Emmanuel Porter.
Yeah. And we didn't hear anything from Emmanuel Porter this last weekend. But that just shows you how deep they really are. I mean, at any time, 4 or 5 of those guys could all go off. I mean, I can't even imagine trying to be a defensive coordinator trying to prepare for what the Frogs throw at you.
Which brings us to the game this week. As you said a while ago, you left the stadium not believing that TCU had a chance to beat Texas Tech. And I know you do now. I'm still kind of on the fence. I do think TCU can win. I do think it's going to be a very, very tough game. I see it being a similar game like we saw a couple years ago. I think was it the double, triple overtime, or I can't remember.
Yeah, the one in Fort Worth?
Right, it was the 56, 55, some crazy score. I think it's going to be a game that's going to be won. The winner's going to be 55 or 60 to 50 or 55. Just think that number. I have faith in the TCU defense to get it turned around. They did give up 37 against SMU, but this is a different lion that they're having to fight in Texas Tech.
Well, I believe it will be that type of a game as far as the shootout goes. But even on my prediction earlier today, I think I predicted 48-42. Man, even since then, I've had some time to think about it, and I go back and look at the performances that TCU's offense has had on the road the last couple of years. You take away the neutral site game against Ole Miss, the bowl game, obviously. Their offense has not been explosive. And yes, they scored 48 points at Texas, but
2 of those touchdowns were defensive touchdowns.
Yes, and it makes me really kind of think, okay, can TCU put 40 on the board at Tech?
Well,
I don't know. I mean, this is going to be really interesting to watch.
You make a great point because they didn't score a whole lot. I mean, they scored basically 34 points on the road at Texas. We saw what they did against Kansas. They struggled at West Virginia.
I posted Boykin's stats for the last 6 road games earlier today, and it shows you, he's not barely a 50% passer on the road, and just about an interception per game. And there were a couple games where he had some good rushing stats. And on the Kansas game, he did throw for 330, but he ran for only 2 yards. They contained him running the ball, so he hasn't been as dynamic on the road.
He threw a pick 6 in that game that was luckily called back because Kansas had 12 men on the field.
Yeah. So you'd like to see TCU really pick up their game on the road this week, and it's going to be a tough place to do it. I mean, that place is going to be buzzing. So
you got a lot of elements for the upset. You've got you got Lubbock, Texas, which we asked Coach Patterson on Wednesday if he was glad it was a day game instead of a night game, and you can see the smirk come across his face that he was a lot happier. And he didn't say this, but we've all said it before. Weird things happen in Lubbock, and Texas Tech's a very good home team at night. I'm looking forward to getting up there. I want to see the atmosphere. I mean, I've heard good things about the atmosphere. I've heard horrible things about the atmosphere. I'm just looking forward to seeing a good game, but it does concern me because you do have that element. You have a student body that remembers 82-27. You have a coaching staff that remembers 82-27. You have a football team that remembers 82-27. You have the crowd. You have the score from last year, and you have an offense that can move the ball. They won last week against Arkansas 35-24. Now, we don't know what type of team Arkansas is. They did lose to Toledo the week before. They're not very dimensional. Arkansas is a run team. They don't have a quarterback like Boykin. They certainly don't have receivers.
Jonathan Williams was hurt, so they were already down there.
We do know Texas Tech will give up some points. They gave up a ton of yards and points to Sam Houston State. Now, Sam Houston State is no slouch. They're a very good FCS team, and they've got a lot of players on that team that were FBS athletes. Right. Darius Brown being one of those guys. But if you have a wide open offense, you're gonna be able to move the ball against them. But you will have, Texas Tech will have something to prove, as TCU's been all year. They're going to have a target on their back. This is Tech's Super Bowl. What better way to prove to not only the Big 12 but the entire nation that your program has turned around? And even Coach Patterson said it on Tuesday that he watched that Baylor game. You can tell the difference in Texas Tech as soon as Patrick Mahomes took over at quarterback, that they're a different team offensively. And those things right there are what worries me about this game, because I know TCU can score. I don't know if they can stop Texas Tech from scoring.
Well, I think the real quick passing game for Tech is going to be tough to defend. I do not think that Mahomes is as dynamic of a runner as Matt Davis is, but he is a good runner. As far as keeping Mahomes in the pocket and not letting him, I still believe TCU's going to have to bring pressure, and they're going to have to hit him a lot. But he's a big, strong kid. He's got a good arm, and he has speed. So you have to contain him. But he doesn't scare me as much as Matt Davis. Now, I will say this. Tech has more weapons than SMU does.
Right.
So you've got that. But take one look at that Tech defense, and that is not an impressive defense. And the fact that a really, really bad Arkansas team scored 24 on them, I mean, that I'm telling you guys, that's a bad Arkansas team. They might not win 4 games this year.
There's one thing that gives me optimism going in, and it's something we've talked about the whole year, and it's that linebacker. We knew going into the season there it's going to be tough for the linebackers, whether you had Mike Freeze or Sammy Douglas, any of those guys. Those 2 guys are gone. Now we have Traven Howard and we have Montrell Wilson. They haven't been proven against the run, but they did a good job last week against the pass. And when you have 2 athletic guys like Wilson and Howard, this is what they're out there for. They're out there to cover Big 12 slot receivers. And they're going to face a pretty good group of slot receivers. They got Jakeem Grant, Ian Sadler. Those 2 guys, I'd have them on my team any day of the week. For those of you that like Kevontae Turpin, Jakeem Grant's just like him.
Same kind of player.
Same kind of player. So you're going to have a linebacker with 4.5, 4.6 speed covering those guys, which is a lot better than what they had last year in Paul Dawson and Marcus Mallett covering those guys. And they seemed to do okay last year against Tech, holding them to 27. But I will say this about Mahomes: he's an athletic quarterback. I agree with you. I don't think he is as good a runner as Matt Davis. And I'll say one more thing about Matt Davis. I don't want to backpedal too much, but I was really impressed with Matt Davis's ability to throw the football. A lot of people coming in thought he was just going to be a running quarterback because he had averaged 120 yards. But there were some throws that he made that were remarkable throws. In the time that Gary decided to rush 2 guys and give them 5 or 6 seconds to sit in the pocket, he threw an absolute bullet to his receiver. So it's one of those things where I see the same similarities with he and Mahomes. Mahomes is still young. I think this defense, even though it is young and inexperienced, I think it will be the most athletic defense he's seen all year. Obviously, the most experienced defensive line he'll face all year, and probably the best defensive line he'll face. With a healthy Davion Pearson coming back, it's going to be his first action. That's going to help the Frogs so much up the middle. It's going to give those ends an extra boost on the outside to get to the quarterback. But I think it begins and ends with Mahomes. I think if they can contain him, get in his head, then TCU's going to be fine. If they can go down and get some early scores, take them out of the game early on, I think TCU's going to be on top. But I still keep coming back to a game that's going to be a high-scoring game, 60-55, and if it ends up being like a 38-24 game, you guys can all kiss my butt. I don't care.
Well, here's that. I don't want to keep going back to the Arkansas and Tech game, but one thing that struck me in that game was Tech wasn't really going deep with the ball. They were running across the middle, really short, quick, real quick hitting offense. And that's where I think Montrell Wilson and Traven Howard come into play because their speed, they're going to be counted on a lot in the middle. TCU, I still think, can get a good push against that offensive line. Mahomes isn't going to have all day to throw it, so the deep routes may not develop. And if they're trying to constantly go that quick hitter offense, I think TCU has the athletes to defend that, but they've got to make the plays. If Tech hits them for a couple big plays early on, you don't want to see these young guys lose confidence because then that's when it gets away from you and it can get really ugly. They need to make some plays early for their own, just for themselves to know that, hey, we can stop this offense. But just think about this, what we're talking about right now. We're talking about TCU going into Tech, and even the fact that there's this much angst over this game. I never even pictured this at the beginning of the season. It just shows you how crazy college football is from year to year.
Well, there's a lot of parity, not only in the Big 12, but I mean from coast to coast. And, if you had asked me when the season started, I would have thought Tech would have been 2-1. I thought they were going to lose to Arkansas, but obviously Arkansas is not the team a lot of people thought. I think it's just ludicrous that some people were talking about Arkansas as a possible playoff team.
And Auburn.
Yeah. So SEC.
Scrappy Auburn.
Let's talk about. Yeah, you're never going to let that die. The Scrappy Tigers, are you?
No.
But the guy that I want TCU to really focus on, and I'm sure Coach Patterson has told his linebackers this as well, but DeAndre Washington, he's a very good running back. Does a really good job catching the football. I think he could be the difference maker for Texas Tech in this ball game if TCU does do a good job covering the receivers, covering guys like Reginald Davis, Jakeem Grant. I think he could be the difference. I mean, he went up there, he rushed for 75 yards against Arkansas, and he's a fast back. He's a very fast back. Justin Stockton's another fast back, kind of like Kyle Hicks is for TCU. Kind of a third down back, not as big as Hicks, but obviously when you see Justin Stockton in the backfield, you better watch out for screens. You better watch out for little sweeps. He's a very quick running back. But the thing that gives me hope and optimism is TCU's very athletic on defense. Coach Patterson has said it on multiple occasions. This is the fastest defense he's ever had when they know where they're running. They're really athletic. We've been around the program for 11 years. We haven't seen a defense that moves sideline to sideline as fast as this group does. Derek Kendrick's playing out of his mind. Denzel Johnson's playing out of his mind. Bryson Henderson is a guy that's really came on.
He's really, really stepped up.
Josh Carraway is having a great year. I think, again, with Davion coming back, giving that push up the middle. Aaron Curry has done a good job in his absence.
He's
Chris
been
Bradley.
Solid. Yeah.
Beginning of the year, the defensive line was the strongest group. Right now, with injuries and other things, with Mike being out, it's kind of become one of those groups where younger players are going to have to come in and play. Tippa has come in and played well for a true freshman. I think he got a sack last week against SMU, but it's going to be an exciting time. I'm looking forward to going up to Lubbock. I've never been up there. I want to see this atmosphere. I know people are kind of telling us to watch out for some things, and I got your back no matter what, man. I just want you to know that.
I got your back too, man.
In the parking lot, in the press,
but we're not going to take
box,
their beer.
In the press box, I don't care where it's at. I got your back. You're gonna have a long 48 hours. We're gonna get into that a little bit later when we talk about Isaiah Chambers. But it's I keep saying for some reason. I can't believe I keep saying that. But anyway, it's going to be a fun game to watch. I don't know what else to say about it. I'm just really excited for it.
It's only Wednesday, and I've kind of been like I am right now since Monday. I'm just ready for the day to be here. I think more than anything, it's just the unknown right now. I want to see where this TCU team is. Coming out of that game at Tech, I think we'll have a real good feeling of what TCU has. I think they needed to be matched up against a Big 12 team that can put pressure on them with an offense, and I want to see where they stand. They come out of that with the win, healthy, don't lose any more guys. I think they're in a good shape to make a run. Obviously, if they lose that game or they lose any more players on defense, we might be talking about a whole other thing come next week. So this is a huge game. I mean, it's just the fourth game of the year, but this is absolutely a pivotal game in the season.
Well, I love the fact that we're getting into Big 12 play. That's the big thing, and it's a long season, but like you said, it's going to be a fun one. But it's time to look around the rest of the Big 12, what they did last week. We got a couple good games to talk about. I know you called Jeff Lebby and told him it's okay to go up there to Oklahoma as a Baylor coach. So
How in the
can you
world
tell-
did that ever seem like a good idea to those guys? I mean, you know the rules.
why, you're asking a rhetorical question you know the answer to.
I mean, if I don't understand how Baylor thinks that they can get away with those types of things, but
Better watch out. We're gonna get.
I'm not going to
media
step on any
announced.
toes. I'm just going to say this: the rules apply to everybody, and Baylor's being watched closely right now. But they're paying for it with a real stiff half game penalty for that coach. So
Against Oklahoma.
So yeah, but Philip Montgomery up there at Tulsa is doing a good job, and he.
Hey, man, I love that game.
Yeah, that was a fun
Oklahoma
game to
ended up
watch.
winning 52-38,
Yep.
but you can see that Tulsa's running basically Baylor Junior.
It looked like Baylor Junior up there.
Garrett had a good game against them, and that was a guy that was craving a TCU offer, just like Cortland Sutton was from SMU. But 52-38 playing at home. Tulsa could be one of those teams that might sneak up on some people in Conference USA. In Oklahoma, thank goodness they have Baker Mayfield because, man, that guy just makes plays. That's another, if you're looking ahead to the schedule and you're looking at athletic quarterbacks, I think Matt Davis prepared TCU for an athletic quarterback, but as you look down the schedule, Baker Mayfield is that guy that kind of makes you nervous because that play when the game was close and he was all but sacked in the backfield, the guy's basically untying a shoe for him, and he gets away somehow, acts like he's going to start running, and then sees a guy backpedals and throws a dart, and the guy makes a move, walks into the end zone.
He's as good as anybody I've seen this year when the play breaks down, making something happen. And he, you saw glimpses of it when he was at Tech, but he's really matured as a quarterback, and he keeps his eyes downfield at all times. He's a threat to run, but his passing game has really come a long way. And that Oklahoma offense is going to be something to deal with down the road here pretty soon.
That's going to be a tough game to play in Norman with that offense. Everyone's going to this up-tempo offense, and before long, the games are going to be 55-50, 60-55.
Every single week.
It's going to be tough on defensive-minded guys like Coach Patterson and guys across the country, even Nick Saban. I mean, look what
at
Ole
the
Miss
scores
did to
last week.
Alabama.
I mean, it's every single game. I mean, yes, this is out of conference games, but it's video game scores on every single one of these games, So, it drives a coach like Coach Patterson just up a wall. But he knew he had to change, and he did. And TCU's got as good of an offense as any of these teams. So they've got as good a shot as anyone.
Well, let's move down south to Austin. And we're sitting up there in the press box. We're watching the score, and Texas is playing close. Next thing we know, it's 45-24, Cal's beating Texas. And we're all thinking the game's done. And we come back and find out Cal wins 45-44, but the way Texas loses from a missed extra point, and for anyone that hasn't seen Gus Johnson's call on Gerard Hurd's touchdown and the missed extra point, I'm about to start giggling here because I love Gus Johnson, man. I can listen to that guy all day. But man, what a way to lose! But there's a silver lining for Texas fans because even though they did lose, they lost to a pretty decent California team. They
found their quarterback.
Yeah, they're 3-0 now, but that was the big question for the season. Texas wasn't going to do anything without a quarterback, and it appears, at least for now, Gerard Hurd is the answer.
Yeah, I mean, it makes you wonder almost what took so long to make the move. If you watch Swoops play, I mean, that's like watching paint dry. I mean, that was just really hard.
What they said initially was that Gerard was not ready for an environment like Notre Dame.
How do you know until you put them in there? That's
Exactly.
always my thought. Especially these days, kids come in all the time as freshmen, and especially out of the Dallas-Fort Worth area, these kids are used to playing in big time out of these big programs in front of huge crowds in the playoffs and Cowboy Stadium and for the state championship games. I mean, 40,000 out of high school. They're not affected when they step on the field of a major big school stadium anymore. So. Yeah. I don't know. I was kind of surprised it took them so long to make that move. I think,
but the Norville kind of was the instigator in that move, and sometimes that's all it takes for
and
a
also
team to start gelling.
He's now calling the plays.
Yeah,
and that was a big change for them as well. But how many?
I can't think of any other team that has had that kind of success so fast when there's a change in play calling.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing. I
was being sarcastic.
Well, it was pretty amazing to watch how drastic it was during in-season change. You know what I mean? Obviously, when TCU made their change, It was extremely drastic, but yeah, I mean, to go from one game where they look completely incompetent to what they're doing now, we'll see.
Gerard had a good game.
Yeah.
I mean, he didn't throw a touchdown pass, but he threw for almost 400 and he rushed for almost 200. And I mean, he's very athletic, and we had a chance to interview him several times. TCU was an offer for him, and he's a very mature kid, very football savvy. One of those watches videos all night long, wants to prepare himself in the best way he can. And I will say, I want to see what he does against a little better defense. He'll get a test this week against Oklahoma State, and certainly a test next week. Well, I don't want to say certainly, but he'll get a better test when they come up to Amon G and play TCU. But the other game we want to talk about, Oklahoma State 69-14 over UTSA. That game was, kind of close early on, and then Oklahoma State ran away with it. It looks like they're still using a two-system quarterback, Mason Rudolph and J.W. Walsh, but Oklahoma State's getting it done on offense too.
That it may have taken them a little while to gel. The first couple of games they looked real shaky. Obviously, UTSA is not world beaters, but they play with Texas kids. They've got some athletes, and Oklahoma State didn't play very well at all in their first two games, but they looked real impressive in this one. Maybe they're just now they're hitting their stride. They were picked as one of the dark horses for the Big 12 this year, and maybe they will be. So they'll be a good team to watch coming up in the coming weeks. One of the game that I watched, paid attention to, the Kansas State Louisiana Tech.
Oh yeah, we were watching that.
Yeah, Kansas State's 3-0 if I'm not mistaken, but that's a really shaky 3-0.
Yeah.
They haven't really looked that good. But as long as Snyder's there.
Man.
As long as Snyder's there, they're going to win football games. They're going to hit you in the mouth, and they're going to be tough to play in Kansas State later on this year. But Louisiana Tech's a scrappy team. They played really well.
Kansas State's got trouble at quarterback, though.
Yep.
And on offense, period. I mean, if they go in there playing a team that
can score a lot,
that can and play some defense, they're not scoring 39 points. But, yeah, that was one of those games where you wanted to see Kansas State win because they're in the Big 12, but you kind of pull for the underdog a little bit. I'd like to see Louisiana Tech get a quality win on the road like that. But Kansas did play. I know their record shows 0-2, and this win's not going to show up in the win column, but they did beat Lawrence High School over the weekend.
Yes, their first win of the season.
Yeah, they did win on an overtime field goal, 33-30.
That's sad how bad they are right now.
Yeah,
that's just a bad football team. Well, Iowa State may not be much better. They lost to Toledo. Now Toledo's knocked off Arkansas and a Big 12 school in back-to-back weeks. So there's your MAC champion.
Watch out for the Rockets. Hey, they were predicted to finish to compete for a championship in the MAC.
Right.
And a lot of people thought they were going to win the championship out of the MAC. So, I mean, it is what it is. The Rockets are playing well, and, hey, they got two quality. I mean, I don't want to say Iowa State's a quality win. I don't even know if I want to say Arkansas's a quality win, but it's two wins.
But you go on the road and you take two wins against two Power 5 teams. That's good for Toledo.
If you're trying to sell a recruit on it, you could tell them that they beat two P5 opponents. So.
Right.
Well, let's go forward into next week and make some of these predictions. We'll get into our Texas Tech TCU predictions as well. But let's start off with Texas and Oklahoma State. Obviously, both teams, Texas coming off that 1-point loss. How do they bounce back? Oklahoma State coming off a big win. What do you think is going to happen in this game?
And this one's tough for me because I really do think like Oklahoma State hit their stride, but did Texas as well. How good was California? I don't know. I think the Longhorns are going to win this one, and this is why. I think Gerard Hurd is going to be enough to. You might be looking at a high-scoring game there, but I think Texas pulls that out, and it's amazing how quickly I've turned around on what I think of Texas.
Yeah.
But it is amazing what they've done on offense, and I'm not 100% sold on Oklahoma State yet, so we'll see. But I'm going to take Texas because they're at home.
I'm going to take Oklahoma State because I like their defensive line. I think they got some good guys that can contain Gerard a little bit. I like the athletes they have on defense. They're older than Texas. Texas is still very young on defense. They gave up 45 points to Cal. Obviously, Goff is a good quarterback. A lot of people think he's going to be one of the top 3 quarterbacks taken. So they weren't playing a slouch at quarterback, but they are going to see 2 quarterbacks that can get the job done this week in Mason Rudolph and J.W. Walsh. Give me Oklahoma State. I don't know about how much, but I think they can come down there and win the game, and Texas is going to be 1-3 coming into
the
A&T
over-under
Carter
on that
Stadium.
game is 61. What do you think?
I think it'll go over.
Okay.
Let's go to Baylor and Rice. I know Baylor's the team you like talking about other than TCU, and
Oh yeah.
Rice comes into the game 2-1. Baylor's coming off that huge win over Lamar, and I think Baylor will get it done again this week.
Yeah, Baylor wins easily. Rice shouldn't put up much of a challenge. If Rice scores 30 points in that one, that'll be another team that scored 30 points against Baylor, and that'll make me feel a whole lot better about the showdown with TCU and Baylor at the end of the year. But Baylor should win that one handily.
Kansas at Rutgers. Give me Rutgers.
Rutgers all day long, and they're not even looking that good this year either.
1-2.
But
The Scarlet Knights are 1-2.
I mean, Kansas could legitimately go 0-12 this year.
Not again. How many did they win last year?
Was it 1 or 2?
Did they win?
I
think
can't
they won
remember.
2.
Okay, it's bad. They're in a bad spot right now.
Somehow or another, they almost beat the top 5 team in the country. Go figure. West Virginia and Maryland. Give me West Virginia
Give me
all
West
day long.
Virginia.
I like West Virginia right now.
I'm very high on them.
They're a scary team to me. I'm glad TCU plays them at home this year because if they played them in Morgantown again, I don't know what that I don't think it would be great news for the Frogs.
No.
I love Skylar Howard, local kid, Fort Worth Brewer. He's good dual threat quarterback. Can make plays with his feet, but I love that defense. I love the secondary. Carl Joseph, man, he's the guy that pretty much ended B.J. Catalan's career.
Yeah.
What a hard hitter. And West Virginia is off and running. They're 2-0 right now.
I'm telling you guys,
I'm going with the Mountaineers.
With all the explosive offenses and all the talk about, Baylor and TCU and Oklahoma, man, don't sleep on West Virginia. That is a team that could win this whole conference. Their defense is good enough that they could win this whole conference. That is one of the hardest hitting football teams I've seen in a very long time. And their offense is just scary enough that you have to respect them. So, yeah, I think they absolutely get it done against Maryland, and I really do think they're a threat to win the whole thing this year.
And let's go to Texas Tech and TCU. Obviously, big game for the Horned Frogs. Obviously, a very huge game for Texas Tech. Like I said earlier, what better way for Texas Tech to show the Big 12 and show the entire nation that they have rebounded from last year's dismal season. But I think TCU gets it done. I think they're going to have enough offensive firepower to go out there and score on the Red Raiders defense. The Red Raiders have not shown me enough on defense to tell me that they can stop TCU from scoring 50 to 60 points. Give me the Horned Frogs. I know it's going to be close, but Horned Frogs are going to pull away.
Here's what I'm looking for. Can TCU overcome the emotion and the energy that Tech is going to come out with? Tech's going to come out and they're going to hit them in the mouth. They're going to have the crowd going crazy. If TCU can withstand that initial push, and they can maybe even stop them on a couple of series and get up by a score or two, I think TCU is going to win the football game. You just don't want to see them fall behind early and then things start to spiral out of control.
Right.
But give me TCU in the game. I'm going to stick with my prediction that they win. It may not be the 48-42 like I predicted earlier today on the thread. I may want to go a little bit lower than that, maybe a 45-37 type game. But regardless, I think TCU pulls it out, and that's all that matters. You get out of Lubbock with a win.
Give me 59-49.
You're giving us a score? I'm not even used to you ever giving a score prediction.
59-49. I'm going to put it out there.
All right.
I'm giving the score prediction this week.
All right.
So you're going to have a busy 48 hours coming from Friday into Saturday.
Yeah.
Friday morning, you get it started. And where are you going?
I'm going down to Aldine MacArthur.
Now, why in the heck would you be going to Aldine MacArthur?
I don't know. There's this guy named Isaiah Chambers who happens to be one of the most impressive defensive recruits that TCU's had a chance to land in a very long time. Very impressive defensive end prospect that could play defensive tackle. He's 6'4", 260 pounds. Just an absolute freak.
He's big enough to play inside. He's fast enough to play outside.
Absolutely. This guy had 21 sacks as a junior last year.
So he's pretty good.
21 sacks. He's all right, man. I think he had like 30 tackles for loss. Some ridiculous numbers like that. So, yeah, I'm going to be down there. Obviously, he had just fresh off of a trip to Washington where he had a great trip. I really enjoyed his visit there. Baylor's in the mix. Texas A&M's in the mix. TCU is in the mix. But
Final four.
Yeah, I mean, I really think TCU's going to win out here. We're going to find out. So you guys follow along. I'll be tweeting while I'm down there, and the ceremony is supposed to kick off at 2 o'clock. I'm going to go down a little bit early, try to get some interviews done with him and maybe his coach. But that's going to be a big day for TCU. He is very good friends with Travion Williams. He's very close with all of the Houston commits that TCU has in the
Right.
2016 class, they've all been working on him. They all feel confident, but this is recruiting. So, you never know exactly what's going to happen no matter how good you feel about something.
I'll give you 2 reasons why I think Chambers is going to be a frog. Curtis Looper.
Curtis Looper. That's 2 good words.
That guy is
He's incredible.
recruiting machine, and typically when Looper's on a guy in Houston, he's going up against LSU, Texas, A&M, a lot of those big schools. Looper's recruited in the SEC, being at Auburn before. He's not any stranger to these tough recruiting battles. But I think his relationship with Chambers, you've talked to him several times, and he's mentioned how much of a relationship he and Coach Looper have. I think that's going to stand out to him. I think the fact that TCU is losing 3 defensive ends at the conclusion of this season is going to be a huge factor for him. He'll have a chance to come in and play early. Like we said, he could play outside, he could play inside. He'll play anywhere Coach Patterson wants him to play, and he'll do well at it. He's the number 6 defensive end in the country right now, top 100 player, top 15 player in the state. Will be a great defensive commit if TCU is able to beat out Washington, A&M, and Baylor. The thing about A&M, he was at A&M lean, I think, early on. Obviously, making a trip up to Washington kind of makes you think he's looking a little bit at the Huskies, but sometimes it's kind of cool to get out of Texas and go halfway across the country.
And what a cool place to visit.
Yeah, to the Northwest. I've always wanted to go Seattle. I've never been. But, why not take a trip up there and get an official visit out of the way? Baylor, I do know he didn't ever visit over the summer, and that's one thing that they wanted him to do. And Baylor just got a commitment from Michael Johnson, who switched from Houston. So I don't know if that's telling of what's going to happen with Isaiah coming up, but
could be.
I really do like TCU's chances. I've liked TCU chances for a very long time. We've teased about a commitment happening this month, but I feel good about it. You feel good about it. We're not going to go out there and put our 100% JC and JG stamp on it yet. But you will be down there covering it,
right.
And hopefully you'll be able to bring some big news for the Frog fans.
Make no mistake, this is the kind of talent that will step on campus and will play as a true freshman in the rotation. He is that good. The guy's, he's college ready right now. He is a very, very impressive player. Going on a limb, maybe not going on much of a limb here, saying that might be Coach Patterson's favorite defensive recruit of all the guys that they're recruiting right now. I think that might be the guy that he wants the most. The thought of him, and Shawo and some of these guys all playing together.
Gary Overshown is the guy that ran a 4.58 at TCU's
incredibly
camp.
underrated.
Yeah.
So, adding a guy like Chambers to what they've already got coming in on this class on defense is just going to continue to give TCU the defenses that they've had in the past, and maybe even better going forward. So I'll be there Friday. We'll be covering that, and then can turn around and come right back, drive down there and drive back in the same day, and then we get to drive to Lubbock the next morning.
Yeah, I don't know how you're going to help me drive, but you were supposed to be driving that morning, Saturday morning. I still may hold you up to it, but I'm going to get out and see Dylan Thomas Friday night. He's been putting up huge numbers. I'm anxious to see. Pascal's 3-0. They're undefeated. They're scoring like 67 points a game. It's going to be fun to get out and see what kind of talent he has. He's doing this at quarterback, and he told me the other day that SMU is still pursuing him as a quarterback. OU's looking at him at receiver. But I want to get out there and see what kind of talent he has. Obviously, he's got some pretty good talent putting up the numbers he is. But a couple quick things from the visits we had with the recruits that were in town for the TCU SMU game. Tremunda Moore, if anyone saw him on the sidelines, knows he's probably one of those guys that can step in right away and make an impact on the offensive line. 6'6", 330. Doesn't look 330. He's built like a brick house. Just solid muscle almost. It kind of reminds me of Braden Smith a little bit. Not as chiseled up as Braden, but, man, certainly a big dude.
He's just a monster.
Barry Browning was obviously there, committed to Baylor, but I'll say this. It's a long, long, long way till 2017 signing class. And I do know TCU is working their tails off recruiting Barron, and maybe it pays off in the end, maybe it doesn't, but TCU is at least giving it a shot and seeing what they can do. And I know a lot of Frog fans were hoping that Barron was going to commit to the Frogs early on since his dad played there, but I will say this, TCU's not out of the picture no matter what anyone says. They are still very much in it.
Cedar Hill 2017 wide receiver Cameron Buckley was on hand. He just listening to him talk, I mean, this is a kid that's very high on TCU. He's been there a couple times, been there for camps, and he really likes what the Frogs do on offense. He seems very genuine whenever you talk to him, that he's very, very high on what TCU
I can see Cameron making a decision before the season's done, and I do think he's leaning toward TCU. He's obviously going to get a lot more offers. We were there the night that he was impressive at TCU's skills camp, and next thing you know, he's getting offers from Texas, and Kansas offered the other day, and he's gonna keep continuing to get more offers as his season progresses. But we're still reaching out to several recruits, trying to get feedback from those guys. Sometimes it's easy to get a hold of them, sometimes it's not, but we're still plugging away at it. But big next 48 hours coming up. What is today? Wednesday?
Yeah.
Thursday, Friday. We got Saturday. Gonna look forward to that. We see any of you guys out there, please be sure to say hi. We love to talk Frog football. We love to talk recruiting. We love to talk to you, especially when we don't have to put it on the board. So that's the best time to catch us. You see us walking around, we're like little tweeting birds, aren't we?
And we are.
Yeah.
We are. You never know what you're going to get out of us. Just give us a Keystone and we just start talking.
We want Keystone. That's it. Well, hey, guys. Until next time, I'm Jeremy Clark. Jeremiah Glenn, as always, we enjoy doing this. We appreciate you guys' feedback. You guys have a nice night.
Thanks, guys.